Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Chanel, Group 5, and our chapter entitled Intersubjectivity. In this chapter, there are 3 lessons. Lesson 1, the problem of other minds. Lesson 2, self-recognition. Lesson 3, recognizing others.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to tackle the partition against. The start dualism in philosophy lead to the formation of an internal and external world with the mind and body separated. Descartes believed that everything perceived by the sense were false, leading him to believe that he was only existing because he was thinking. However, the question of the external world would be more pronounced as the mind trapped itself in its inner world. Descartes eventually settled for an argument to prove the existence of a good God who would not allow deception. He argued that continuity of experiences could resolve the difficulty of dreaming while perceiving something. The problem of other minds arises from the separation of the mind and body, as well as the relationship between the subject and its world. It's important to consider whether the objects we perceive are real or if they are conscious being like us. This problem is known as the problem of other minds, which question whether what we encounter are a conscious subject, not just body or automatics.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about phenomenology, or for anything else that has nothing to do with phenomenology. So phenomenology comes from the Greek word phenomenon and logos, which means that it appears as time respectively. So Husserl, which is the forerunner of the modern philosophy, Husserl wanted to approach the method of simply all that which appears. So because the philosophy approaches to this time we're going back that which appears. So usa siyang buko is niya. For example, makita kag windows, doors, and nalilo. So we have shown that this is a house. So usa siyang buko is makita ng things.
Husserl's solipsism. Husserl's fundamental idealism creates a difficulty which is known as solipsism. Solipsism is from the Latin word solus, which means alone, and ipse, which means self. Thus, if in philosophical perspective that considers the self alone as the only thing certain and the only basis of reality, solipsism has different forms in the history of philosophy. For our purposes, we consider the resulting solipsism of Husserl's transcendental idealism as the reduction of experience and consciousness to the consciousness of the transcendental ego, or simply put, to my experience, my consciousness, consequently, everything is reduced to one's own experience. So solipsism is a philosophical viewpoint that suggests the only thing we can truly know to exist is our own consciousness. According to solipsism, everything else, including the external world and other minds, is uncertain and may be mere figments of our imagination. It's rather an extreme form of skepticism that challenges our ability to truly understand and interact with the world outside of our own subjective experiences. While solipsism is an intriguing concept to ponder, it is generally considered a highly controversial and debated perspective within the realm of philosophy.
Self-recognition. This lesson explores the relationship between humans and others, focusing on the master and slave relationship. It examines whether the dominant position of the master is superior to that of the slave, and whether the power and force contribute to self-recognition and self-consciousness. Human persons naturally want to be desired and recognized in the point of struggle. In this struggle, we use force and compel others to recognize us. What makes it in a relationship based on domination and possession, a master-slave relationship. Self-consciousness. Self-consciousness can never be achieved in isolation. Rather, it is a product of our interaction in our world. This is one of the main claims made by the German philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel explains that we achieve self-consciousness based on different levels as we encounter many things in our world. Hegel also claims that there are also many instances that we are also absorbed with our experience of the object in the world, but we never recover our consciousness from its being absorbed into other things, thus failing to achieve self-consciousness. Hegel also claims that it is through an experience of lack that we partly became aware of ourselves. Hegel claims that the achievement of full consciousness can never be explained by the desire of just anything, because all animals desire, but not all of them achieve self-consciousness. Hegel further explains that we achieve self-consciousness on different levels as we encounter many things present in our world. Hegel claims that there are also many instances that we are absorbed with our experience of the object into the world that we never recover our consciousness from its being absorbed into other things, this failing into self-recognition. Hegel claims that the achievement of full consciousness can never be explained by the desire of just anything. Human beings are only ones capable. Hegel claims that all animals desire, but not all of them achieve self-consciousness, because human beings are the only ones capable of attaining self-consciousness. Take a child, for example. A child can be attracted to the spinning blade of a fan. Once he touches the fan, he will His self-consciousness will not be directed to the fan but rather to himself or to his pain. Or consider when you are playing in your computer. You become absorbed in your computer that your consciousness is not about yourself but to your computer. And suddenly you became hungry, and then that brings you back into your self-consciousness. The master and slave relationship. The relationship between a master and slave has existed since ancient times. Slavery is accepted and protected by society, while others are considered illegal. Slavery is considered acceptable by many societies due to the right of possesses private property, and slaves are not considered citizens of the state. These are the two important aspects in their relationship, the master and slave relationship. Number one is the equality. We may initially see the suffering of the slave as a clear manifestation of the better position of the master. But it is not only the slave who suffers from the master and slave society relationship. Number two, work. Aside from the inequality that prevents the master from seeking true nice recognition and therefore full self-consciousness, the master also suffers from another form of success because of self-recognition as he distances himself from work.
Good morning, everyone. My topic for today is about true recognition against domination and possession. We now have an idea of Hegel's notion of self-recognition as coming from our intersubjective relationship with others. We eventually gain an understanding of who we are as persons as we relate with each other, treated as persons and not as mere means or objects. Hegel influenced many thinkers after him to consider different types of relationships that still bear the character of the master-slave relationship. We shall then consider newer versions of this relationship that are more subtle and therefore more difficult to identify. We will do this by looking at the essential characteristics that exist between a master and a slave. The desire to be recognized achieved through domination and subjugation. The master has the character of being dominant in the relationship as it expresses its power, control, and supremacy over the slave. Because of this domination, the master feels superior because he has freedom to do whatever he wants to the slave. The slave, on the other hand, is characterized by subjugation. The slave is under the control of the master, and there is the absence of freedom due to the chains that his master tied to him. In considering the newer forms of master-slave relationships, we shall look for domination, subjugation, freedom, and the restriction of freedom in relationships. A is the relationships of domination. A relationship characterized by domination may be found in the different areas of our society. It can be within the family, communities, educational institutions, church, workplace, and practically everywhere. Relationships of domination, just like that of the master and the slave, may have an appearance that the one dominating is the one enjoying power and freedom over the dominated. But we must look at this relationship closely to reveal the real condition in a relationship of domination. Let us provide the example of bullying. Bullying is a relationship of domination and may be expressed in different forms such as intimidation, harassment, discrimination, mistreatment, persecution, oppression, and many more. The bully seeks self-recognition and thinks that he can achieve it by means of dominating others. He terrorizes others so that he wins the battle for recognition and gains the upper hand of a relationship. Every time the bully encounters the bullied, he has the feeling of superiority because he can intimidate and oppress the other just as the master can oppress his slave. The bully can do this because he is stronger and more powerful. The power of the bully is not limited to physical power. Strength and power may come in the form of wealth, social rank, social political affiliation, good looks, and many more. Thus, in a basketball game, for example, the physically stronger player can harass the physically weaker player. In government offices, for instance, a higher-ranking official can intimidate a lower-ranking official. In schools, for example, the more good-looking student can discriminate against the less attractive students. We then see that the bully's domination springs from some form of strength and power. However, just like the master-slave relationship in Hegel, the bully does not gain true and full recognition because the bully has reduced then bully into the rank of a slave. That is someone who is not his equal. B is the relationships of possession. The relationship of possession is a specific kind of relationship of domination. Just like the relationship of domination, this relationship is also present in many different forms and in many different areas in our society. The essential element of this relationship is in the possession of another. Remember that the original sense of being a slave is based on the idea of a property of the master. Thus, modern forms of the master-slave relationship can be found in any type of relationships where we find one party treating the other party as a property possessed. The master once again uses his strength to either possess someone or keep his possessions. Consider these examples of modern master-slave relationship in the form of possession. A rich man ordering his bride online, an employer rejecting the resignation of an outstanding employee using blackmail. A boyfriend forbidding his girlfriend to have conversations with the male species. Parents preventing their child to have conversations with other children of different social status. A coach prohibiting his players to have interactions with players from other teams. The one who possesses once again may think that he gets an upper hand in their relationship and that he gets recognition from this possession. But just like any relationship based on domination, the other from which recognition is forced is reduced into a status of an unequal, thus rendering pseudo-recognition. The relationship of possession then falls into the paradoxical character of a relationship of domination where the master who desires to be recognized ends up not being recognized. And the last one is the mediated recognition. We can enumerate a lot of desires that do not involve the desire to be desired. Some of our desires are simply desire for things and not for recognition. Just like our desire for food, comfort, and other desires that we share with other animals. However, some desires may initially appear to be desire for objects and not for being desired by other persons. But on closer inspection, I reveal that the desire for someone objects is ultimately a desire to be desired. There are quite a number of instances where the desire for objects are considered redirected desires to be recognized. The desire for recognition may not necessarily be directed immediately to the other person, but mediated by objects, thus a mediated recognition. To desire to be recognized is natural to us human beings. We all want to be desired. However, we may be tempted to coerce others to recognize us through the use of force, consequently reducing the other into mere means for our self-recognition. Now we know better that the use of force to acquire self-recognition does not yield true recognition. We may initially feel superior if we indulge ourselves into dominating other people, but we will only end up frustrating ourselves when we realize that others do not truly recognize us for who we are, but only recognize the oppressive power we express. The true condition of the master-slave relationship as presented by Hegel reminds us how to treat other human persons to achieve true and full self-consciousness, that is, as human persons and not as objects and or slaves. That's all. Thank you.
So now we will going to talk about the lesson 3, which is the recognizing others, also known as relating to others. The idea of a self is a product of our relationship with others prior to the notion of a self that directed to first. The direction of our consciousness is to the notion of our work, example, directed towards others, and there are only very few moments when our consciousness is directed to ourselves. So this tells us that our consciousness is directed to siya sa laing tao or sa laing person, dili to siya like sa atong self. Usahay na ta maka-encounter sa moment na directed ang atong consciousness sa atong self. So usahay lang na siya magtabo. So, how we relate to others is a topic which is of great interest to the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber. Buber claims that the I can only realize itself in the face of the other. Without the encounter with another, the I will not be aware of its uniqueness. Thus, to say I is already to acknowledge the other. However, there are several ways by which we relate to others. So, according to Martin Buber, makabalo lang ta sa uniqueness sa I, which is us. Makabalo lang ta sa uniqueness ani through the other. So, makabalo lang ta na inana data from the other person or sa laing tao. Sa laing tao na ta makabalo nga inana de ay ka unique or inana de ay ka sa ilang pananaw. So it really involves relating to others. When Buber speaks of the I realizing his uniqueness through the other, he is not referring to our simple meeting with others. We have different modes of relating to others, and not every mode will allow us to discover the I in its uniqueness. There are several ways by which the I may relate itself to others, but let us look at the 3 different ways by which an I usually relates itself to others. So, mo giingon ni Buber na kung speak ka sa laing tao, diba makabalo ka sa atong uniqueness, dili lang katong meet nga like usually lang nga meet sa other people. So kato siyang i-refer ni na ani is katong kanang makamita sa laing tao na ay kanang different modes. So different modes na ay mga different modes na makabalo ka sa personality sa tao or sa uniqueness sa tao. So mo siya ang katong mabalan karon, which is the 3 different ways by which an I usually relates itself to others. First, there is the I-type of relationship. There are people whose worlds revolve around their own selves. They have no real interest in other people and things. They have material possessions and are involved in social activities, but they are never really committed to things. So they may talk to other people, but they never develop interest in them. They cannot simply find anything appealing in others, and if ever they talk to other people, it is always them, their own eyes, who are really protagonists of the story. So, kanina siya na I-type of relationship is, kanang murag, Nimura siya, murag ganun, ikaw na gali bida for you and na relationship. So, mutok man gali kag laing tao, but then, or nam gani like activities, but then, kano siya na type of relationship. Wala siya pakilay, wala siya pakisa, tuban. Ang iya rin self, ang iyang care, or ang iya rin self, dapat ang iyang i-prioritize. No, maminaw man siya, siguro, if malisa na siya sa others, but it's always herself or himself, ang always niya na, ang always gani na, bida for him or her. So, wala siya nakuwag ko sa kanya kanang nasobraan na rin siya sa self-love. So wala siya. Ang I-type of relationship is ikaw ragali, it's you versus you. So they do not really listen to others or unsay mga gisog-isaban. They already have fixed ideas and they only enter into conversations either to let others know how good they are or to convince others that their ideas are better and must therefore be adopted. The aim is for the other to be transformed into his likeness, the reduction of the other to an I. Thus we may call this relationship as an I-I relationship. So the I type of relationship is kanagaling nara sila like fixed ideas, then usahay makitalk na sila sa laing person para ma-aware ang sa person ng isang katao na mas nice ilang idea, mas good ilang idea or kani dapat ang angay sulod because
good siya or mas better siya nga idea for her or for him. So, dapat mo yung masunod. So, in this I type of relationship mo siya marag kalabanan nila tawag na to po pabida. Because mas bilib ka sa inyong kaugalingon kaysa ubang tao. So, marag idolize ka sa yourself. So, that's it. That's the I relationship. Second, there is the I-it type of relationship. There are people who develop interest in others. They will never attempt to reduce the other into their own likeness, see to another eye. In some instances, they are more concerned about the other than themselves. So, mo siya ang like opposite sa I type of relationship because the I-it type of relationship is where na siya mas paki sa others kaysa iyang kaugalingon. So, dili ni siya like selfish. This type of relationship is selfless. So, naabot siya care sa uban kaysa iyang harang kaugalingon. So, mas naa siya care sa uban kaysa iyang kaugalingon. Murag priority pa nila ang uban. So, mo na siya. However, the treatment to the other is reduced into the status of an object and it. There are many different existing relationships which reduce the other into a status of an object, and perhaps this type of relationship is the most prevalent type in our society. The I who relates to an it is not necessarily an evil person in the sense that he has bad intentions treating the other. So, sa usahay po na apoy lang some cases na mahimong bad ang I-it type of relationship. Okay? For example, gamiton ra sa usa ka tawo, like gamiton ra nimo ang usa ka tawo for your benefit lang or para lang mo take advantage sa iyang like iyang personality kung unsay naan niya, like para lang mo take advantage ka ato. Usahay man mo na siyang bad intentions in case of that case nga kanang murag mo gamit ka in person for your honor or for your pleasure lang. So, wala siya ang I-it relationships. So lastly, there is the I-though type of relationships. There are people who treat other people generally as persons. They do not and will not reduce the other into either their own self or into the status of an object. So it is in this type of relationship that the other is treated as distinctly other. The I treats the person as another person who is different from the I, one who may possess a different set of interests, visions, beliefs, value system, and characteristics. So this is the type of relationship which Uber considers as that which allows us to discover the I. However, this relationship is quite difficult because it entails effort. The treatment of the other as an other requires more from the I. The I has to take a stance of openness and sincerity. There is a need for patience, understanding, humility, compassion, and a lot more. This may become tedious on the part of the I. That is why the I-though type of relationship is a special relationship, which we can never apply to everyone we encounter. It is in this kind of human relationships that genuine sharing of one another takes place. The foundation of this relationship is a genuine form of conversation. So, kani siya na type of relationship, the I-though type of relationship. Muna siya isa sa pinaka-unique, dili ganin mo ma-encounter dayon because it requires efforts, it requires understanding, it requires patience. So, it really requires a lot. So, in this type of relationship, lisod siya usahay, but then this is the special relationships. Mo siya pinaka-special na relationships which we can never encounter in every people or in every person. Like panalagsa ra mo siya para ganin ma-encounter in your life. So usahay ra gali ka mo kanang hatag og genuine na love sa ka person. For example, hatag ka, for example, you have a girlfriend, so daghan na kang effort, daghan na kang gibuhat for her, or daghan na mo memories together. Ganin you are so comfortable with her na jud, and dili na gani nimo siya like murag nakita na nimo siya in the future na kauban nimo siya. But then nag-break up mo. So, kato, murag nawala siya tanan from you, nawala siya tanan, and then, of course, you will be sad, kay ganahan ka nga. Kay ganahan ka nga, murag, daghan na kang effort na nabuhat, daghan na kang na-spend ng time na person, and then, nag-break up lang, mo. So, mo na siya makakos na usahay, dili na mag-trust ang usa ka person. So, dili na dayon siya maka-feel o ginana sa laing tao because nabati naman niya to sa usa ka person na jud. So, usahay, dili na siya makakitag ka ng person na inatuon niya. So, naanay ka na, makakita man gali siya, but then the treatment is different na from the first person or naalang gawin ko na mausog. Dili na ka inato ka effort to her sa imuang yung na ma-encounter person because na sayang naman yung effort sa usa. So, ito siya. That's the example of the I-though type of relationship. But this relationship is a very special type of relationship because kani siya, genuine siya. Very genuine. So, the foundation of this relationship is the genuine form of conversation. So, this I-though type of relationship is genuine. That's all.
Factoid. Empathy and sympathy are often confused by people because both refer to a feeling. Pathy coming from a Greek word pathos, which means feeling or emotions towards another person. Empathy involves imaginative transferring of others' experience into ourselves, and that is why we claim that we understand and share the feeling of each other. Sympathy, on the other hand, is the feeling of compassion for someone without necessarily feeling or trying to feel what the other person is feeling. Responsibility. Empathy allows us to experience what another consciousness is experiencing. This allows us to recognize the existence of the other together with her conscious states.
However, as we encounter the other face to face, we do not feel at ease with simply knowing and feeling what the other is experiencing. We are driven to act and do something for the other. We feel that we are responsible for the other. This is the claim of the French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas. Levinas argues that the face of the other compels us to respond to its needs.
Substitution is not just another word which elites use to describe the act of putting ourselves in the place of others. Substitution does more than that. It is the weight of other I expressing and finding comfort in addressing the weakness and difficulties of others. Substitution, on the other hand, adds another element in the movement. It does not stop in the I. The I will go back to the another to address its needs, and there is no longer a movement back to the I. This means that when we respond to the call of the face, we respond within expecting anything in return from the other or from anyone. Reciprocity, responding to a positive action with another positive action, rewarding from action. Reciprocity is not our responsibility. We do not require the other to reciprocate when we act. We are responsible to the other if we do not know the another responsibility, personality.